So this week at Bible study, we talked about friends, family, and who we just overall associate with. We started off in Genesis 13, where we talked about how Abraham was with Lot, and they ended up having to split because of their herdsmen, right? And so Abraham said to Lot, "Wherever you go, I'll go the opposite." And so in that time, it says in verse 10 that Lot lifted up his eyes toward the valley of the Jordan. This is where Sodom was at the time, and when he looked up and he saw the valley of the Jordan, he saw the benefit of going to the valley of the Jordan, to go into this place of Sodom. And it was because it was a well-watered area, right? It was good to be able to provide for his cattle and for his family. And so then in Genesis 14, we go through this place where there's kings that are fighting against each other, and Lot actually ends up getting enslaved and captured by one of these kings, and he'll eventually be saved and brought back, but he was captured because of his association in Sodom. And so then that's where we get to Genesis 18, where at the very end of that chapter, Abraham is having this discussion with God about, if there are 50 righteous people, would you bring judgment upon Sodom and Gomorrah? Because that's what God planned on doing at the time. And so they went back and forth and eventually got to the point where Abraham said, if there's even 10 people in Sodom, would you bring judgment upon them? And so by chapter 19 of Genesis, we see that God will bring Sodom into judgment. And so that just proves to you that there's not even 10 people righteous in Sodom, but yet Lot is associating in this place. And so we start off chapter 19 with these two angels that come in. These two angels come in to warn Lot and his family of the judgment that is coming, right? And so they come in, and the people of Sodom see them come in, and they're so wicked to the point where they want to have relations with these two men, these two angels that come into the place, that went into Lot's house. And they told Lot that, and Lot had created this soft spot of sin for him. He's, instead of acting in a harsh way against these people, he says, please, brothers, don't act wickedly. He kind of softens this place right here. And he says that he would even offer up his own daughters that they can do whatever they want with, right? And so he's creating this soft spot of sin in his life because of this place that he's been living in for so long, right? And so we get to the point where God strikes the people of Sodom with blindness, right? To save Lot and the angels and the people in that house, right? And the next morning, the two angels are warning Lot and his family to get out before judgment starts to come. And it says that during that time that Lot hesitated at that moment. Lot hesitated because he had nowhere else to go, because he associated in this place of Sodom, and he grew so used to this place of wickedness that he was in. And so in that, the Lord had compassion on him and still continued to bring his family out. And Lot later did realize that it was the compassion of the Lord that brought him out and saved him from this place of judgment, that he would have ended up being in judgment because of that. But Lot did end up losing his wife because his wife looked back at the judgment and became a pillar of salt. But we went over this story, and we talked about how we can associate, and we have friends and we have families that we associate with that may live in sin, right? But I don't want to condemn anyone that hangs out with sinners, right? Because we know that in the New Testament, Jesus did hang out with sinners. He was a friend of sinners. But there's a difference between what Jesus did and what Lot did, right? Lot stayed in this place of sin, and he grew this soft spot of sin because he was living in it so much, and because of the self-benefit that he had when he came into the place in the first place. And so Jesus took a whole nother route, right? Where he hung out with sinners for the glory of the Father. He wasn't given in to any of the sin that these people were bringing towards him. He wasn't given in to any unrighteousness or anything that was separating him from God, but he was doing it for the glory of the Father and to be a testimony to them about what God has done, right? Because we know Jesus was a perfect and sinless man, and so that he did not give in to any of the sin of his friends and his disciples at that time. So we just need to remember that God needs to be first in our life, even over our friends and family. And it may be hard sometimes not to give into that sin, but we have to remember that God has called us to be much higher than that. That we are called to be disciples, called to be followers of His word. And so I just encourage you to consider that.